Gather round, weirdos. Today we're talking about your creative genius. And if you identify as weird, or where you identify as weird, can actually be a hidden superpower. So today we're talking about the planet Uranus and how it shows up in the birth chart. Uranus is the planet of the rebel, the revolutionary, the innovator, the inventor, the disruptor. So wherever Uranus sits in your birth chart is where you're meant to do life a little differently and actually be maybe a little ahead of your time. So there's an expression, I think it's credited with Albert Einstein, but they don't really know who said it, and that is the difference between insanity and genius is time. And that's because certain periods of time might not be ready for your ideas. And what is deemed crazy in one period is then the cutting edge of innovation in another. And often people who have invented amazing things or had pretty out there ideas and expressions may not have been really widely accepted in the time periods they lived in, but they set a tone that was later embraced in another time. So we're going to go through examples of some of these very Uranian types. And a Uranian type is just someone who has Uranus really prominent in their chart. Maybe it's conjunct their midheaven or their ascendant, any of the angles of the chart. Maybe it's in aspect to their Mercury, because Mercury is very much how we express ourselves, how we think, and how we communicate. And I'm a person who I would say is Uranian. I have Mercury conjunct Uranus, I have Uranus on my midheaven, and so I do feel qualified to talk about this. Let's talk about Mercury on midheaven. This is people that will be exposed for being weird, because the midheaven is connected to the 10th house and how we show up in the world. And as an astrologer, all the time people, when they ask me what I do, have a hard time really digesting it, or they might think it's weird, or they're really inspired by it. But either way, it is worth noting that Uranus is the planet that rules astrology. And so it's any kind of system that can seem like intuition, or any way of thinking that can seem like intuition and pretty out there, that's actually logic moving really quickly. So Uranus on the MC types are people who have become known for their avant-garde style, their inventions, their unique nature in a very public way. This is true for people who have Aquarius on the midheaven as well. And two performers who are well known to be kind of out there are Bjork and Prince, who both have Uranus on their midheaven. Now, Prince is, he was the first one to really do away with pronouns. He became the artist formerly known as Prince, but he was very unique. He had a symbol for his name. We also have Bjork, a very different type of musician. Both these musicians very much pioneered their own styles. Prince pioneered the Minneapolis sound. Bjork had this kind of otherworldly, still does, kind of elemental way of singing. And I remember seeing her in Chicago, and a few songs into her set, it started lightning and thundering so violently they actually had to evacuate everyone, and the show was canceled. It did kind of suck, but I felt it was her voice summoning the thunder gods. That's what it felt like. And she's alien, she's out there, and she's in the public eye for being a little different. And people might think, oh, they want attention or it's a gimmick, but I really think it's having Uranus on that midheaven. They are going to be disruptors in how they show up in the public. And you might have that too. So if you do, embrace having a career that might be different, embrace being seen in your weirdness, which can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people, but know that it actually does liberate others when you can be seen in your weirdness and embrace it. Let's also talk about people who have Mercury in hard aspect to Uranus. Bjork had a Mercury-Uranus square in her chart. I will try to pop her chart up here. She has Mercury square Uranus 1 degree. Many great thinkers have a Mercury-Uranus aspect. It's considered a very ingenious aspect because, again, Mercury is communication, and then Uranus is that higher understanding and logic. And Buckminster Fuller was a great visionary who had Mercury trine Uranus in his birth chart. He also invented this whole system of viewing the planets called Spaceship Earth, and the idea was it was a sustainable regenerative model. And he invented cars and homes and had this whole blueprint for future thinking, how we can live not just as national citizens, but planetary citizens. And he even coined this term. He coined a lot of terms because he was more than just like an architect. He was a poet, he was an inventor, he was a philosopher, but he coined this term ephemeralization, which is the idea that in the future we will be so efficient with the technology, we're not going to need as much to use as much resources. And I do believe, I'm hopeful that we are entering one of those kind of eras. I think he predicted that pretty accurately. Then we have Benjamin Franklin, another person with a Uranian midheaven. He was an inventor, and he had Aquarius midheaven. He also has a Mercury Uranus aspect. He has Mercury, I think opposite. Yeah, Mercury opposite Uranus. And a cosmic combination I see in a lot of inventors is Jupiter with Uranus. So Jupiter there is the planet connected to healing. It is the planet connected to guru and very much higher learning and expansion. So people born during those time periods usually have contributions to the collective through their wisdom, through that kind of Uranian wisdom. And one such person was Hedy Lamarr. She was a Hollywood actress, but she actually co-invented a frequency hopping device that was the precursor to modern wireless technologies. And we have Tim Berners-Lee, the guy attributed with inventing the internet. He had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in addition to moon opposite Uranus. Also, Hedy Lamarr had the Mercury-Uranus square, 4 degrees. Point being, these are just some examples. I'm not going to pull all their charts up, but these are just some examples of people who I would deem Uranian types. Really common in people that pioneer new ways of expressing aesthetics, the way they communicate, and they might have ideas that, again, seem like they're ahead of their time. So I would invite you to explore your chart, whether you have a really strong Uranian aspect like moon or your sun with Uranus, or perhaps you just have Uranus in your chart somewhere. You can identify what area of life you're going to be a bit of a disruptor or maybe be a little out there. And I invite you to lean into that. I actually invite you to find people that might understand that wavelength that you can share with, because Uranus is about groups and connecting with networks. So we are entering a time where Uranus and Taurus is going into Gemini in the Western zodiac. And so this is a huge collective shift taking place where there's going to be more ways to connect over avant-garde ideas. And there's going to be more unique voices, inventions, and ideas on the scene. If you'd like to work with me, I would love to do that. I have sessions below in the description, and I also put out videos every week. I'm an intuitive strategist, and if you just want to support my channel, you can like the video, share, and comment below. Are you a weirdo?